Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Okay, is everybody as chipper as me that there's cooler weather on the horizon? Because I am done with the corn sweat.
Is there
What is
chipper
corn sweat?
or what?
You've not heard
corn
about,
sweat?
about the corn sweat?
So
No,
when you
I've
eat
not
too
heard
much,
about the
like,
corn sweat.
county fair popcorn? What is corn sweat?
It's a listen, you all
I know
obviously
what corn
don't
smut
watch
is.
the
Is it
weather.
anything like that?
No.
You don't watch
No,
the
corn
weather?
sweat.
You're talking about the humidity.
Yeah. So in areas where
Yeah.
there's lots of corn that surrounds you, right? A lot of leaf area is respiring. And so the relative humidity in areas like Illinois and Indiana, where there's just corn everywhere, is significantly higher. And so they call it the corn sweat because the temperature is higher.
And they're
due to the
attributing
higher
this to the
humidity.
respiration off of corn?
Yes. It's a real thing.
Or the
Look it up.
transpiration?
I think that we have specialists, and I won't name names here, but we have specialists that have addressed this. So if, dear listeners, you would like more information on this, you can contact your local county extension office.
Who addressed
We do
this?
have official statements on this. What's that,
See?
Brad?
Corn sweat.
Who
corn
addressed
sweat,
this?
corn humidity. Dr. Chad Lee had some very interesting work on that. He does a lot of work on row crops, specifically on corn, and he had some good information on that. So
I'll
that
have to
should
check
be
that out.
available through your local office. Yeah,
I've heard of
it
meat
was
sweats, but I've
interesting. When
not
I
heard of
first
corn
saw that,
sweats.
I mean, of course, he didn't call it corn
Meat
sweat,
sweats.
Alexis. He didn't call it meat sweat.
Google it. Listen, y'all are calling me out, and I come with receipts. Okay.
No one's saying
We're
you're
going to leave that
wrong.
for the return.
My wife introduced a new phrase into the chat, which was I said something and she's like, no, not really, nuh-uh. And she's like, I wasn't disagreeing. I was just agreeing in my own way.
Ooh,
Just refuting.
That's like
refuting what I say. But I was
disagreeing
just agreeing
once
in my own
removed.
way. So that's
I'm
what I
gonna
was
have to
doing with
remember
the
that.
corn sweats.
That's almost good as
Jonathan, have you heard of corn
Jonathan's
sweats?
story he started with. Yeah. What's a good corn sweats, Jonathan?
I believe in the corn sweats.
Okay. Now, when I've been in
I
fields of
believe
corn,
I'm a
like,
Yeah.
well, I've
Hallelujah.
sweated in corn before picking like sweet corn. So is that is that a thing or
Mm.
What?
That's just
big fields
exertion
of-
sweat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe so. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I think
For
if
that
I ate a lot of
plug, yeah.
cornbread, I would get pretty sweaty.
Yeah.
That's because there would be
Mm.
ribs next to it, and you get
Yeah.
the meat sweats
Yeah.
and the corn
Yeah.
sweats all at once.
It's
It'd
all
be
at
hard
one
to
time.
do a controlled experiment of that because I would just be
Yeah.
going for everything else.
Jalapenos in the cornbread. Just all the sweats.
Yeah,
Eat it outside.
I have
Today, when
jalapeno
you're-
sweats. I can see that.
in this conversation, all I heard was cooler weather, and I've not looked forward on the forecast. But is there cooler weather coming in?
There's
I mean, is
cooler
that a
weather
thing?
on the horizon. While we're recording, we are mid corn sweat territory. Heat is
Yes.
advisory is in, and yeah, there's cooler weather on the horizon. Hence
Awesome.
my chipper attitude.
Yeah,
like
I'm happy about
like
that.
80s, like low 80s.
Nice.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
has been,
60s
I
at
guess,
night.
the word heat dome was becoming like all too common. The word heat dome on the weather forecast. I don't know if it's just a catchphrase the last few years, but it seems like we have lots of heat domes.
It's the dome that holds in all the corn sweat.
It is, I guess so.
Yeah,
Canada's
Yeah.
sending us some cooler
It's like
weather.
a
They're
high
like, here,
tunnel
we
over
feel
the
really
corn
bad for
sweat.
you.
Yeah. Magnifies
see.
the corn
Also,
sweat.
did you all hear about the earthquake? I know this is a Hort Culture
Yes,
podcast,
yes,
but
yes,
I'm
yes.
just the earthquake in
What
Brazil.
earthquake? Where?
This is kind of like calling in when I having a conversation with my mom.
Yes.
She's like
The transitions
I'm
are
sorry,
not
I didn't know
always
your mom
smooth.
was so cool.
just rattling off just news events and things that she
Oh,
and
by
be
the
like,
way.
you heard about that?
Yeah.
You know what? It's because I like you guys, and you're just getting all of the info
Okay,
this quickly.
you let in with earthquake and then just
Yeah.
Middle of the
dangle.
ocean, and California, all along the coast, is under a tsunami warning.
And
Oh.
apparently the waves already hit Hawaii.
Oh goodness. No.
I didn't see that yet. Yeah.
We'll be checking that out after
It was
the
like an
recording of this
8.8 or
episode.
something.
I'm a participant in the bit. I'm just
Okay.
it just reminds me of calling, checking in on my mom.
Family members that have random combos with you. Sure.
Well, now you know that if I enjoy your presence, I'm going to say whatever comes to my brain at that exact
Thank
time.
you.
But you know what's on my brain now?
What's
Bugs,
that?
insects,
Oh,
how them
brain?
and plants chill together, doing things. That's what's on my mind, which is perfect because Dr. Jonathan Larson is here today. Ta-da!
Would we call him a fan favorite? I think we'd call him a fan favorite.
He's definitely my favorite. So
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
you can't find a better entomologist. Listen, Papa Rick, love you so much, but you're leaving us. So
I was going to say, I thought Rick was on this show once upon a
Jonathan
time.
is the new
Man.
it boy.
He was.
New guy.
Alexis cannot stay away from the controversy.
She is. She is getting the people
Who are you
going.
talking
Backing
to?
the
Of
Larson
course,
horse.
it's me.
Jonathan, what is this? Number 3 for you on? Is this number 2 or number 3 with us recording an episode? I think maybe number 3.
Is the
Maybe.
3? I thought it was 2, but yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy 3.
Yeah, we were talking about cicadas before, but maybe I made up the first one. It could exist only in my
No,
head.
you're right. I did like IPM once.
Yeah, that's been a while. So
Yeah.
and then you did a very popular episode on the periodical cicadas. So yeah, I got you back again. So
I love the cicadas. I got to talk a lot about them this year with the brood that came out here in Kentucky. And it sounds like lots of dogs and everybody else were enjoying snacking on them and stuff. So I hope it was a popular item for other people in the Hort Culture community.
I think it was, and I believe there was talk of recipes and things, and that really got the folks going, the listeners going. So yeah, that was a good
Did
episode.
you eat any cicadas this year?
Me?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to. I pushed real hard with the Lexington Herald Leader for a local chef contest where we would get them to cook cicadas in various forms.
Mm-hmm.
And me and a reporter and like the food critic for town would all sort of chow down and do it. And they told me they'd get back to me. And I think that was a very polite, like, go away. We've done enough with you on this.
We are not going to assume the liability of this endeavor. Yeah. But
That's
it's
sadly,
amazing.
no, I didn't.
So cicadas are responsible for your primary insect media interactions. Is that right?
This year for sure. Yeah. And last year too, I got to do a lot because of the double brood emergence. And now I guess I have to wait maybe 13 more years until brood X returns and I get to return to the airwaves. But the ticks and the other things have been kind of backfilling some of it. I did a lot of fireflies this year. There was a lot of firefly chatter. So I got to do a lot of media on fireflies too.
I would say those two things probably take up a good amount of your time because it's incredible the increase in the number of phone calls we've gotten in the offices over the last 2 or 3 years on, well, fireflies are more recent, but on ticks, especially with alpha-gal and associated issues, other health issues with that. But it's amazing to me how many calls we get on those things.
People are worried there's not enough of them.
So for the last couple of years, it's been talk of where are they? Why are they dying? Did my neighbor kill all of them when they sprayed for mosquitoes? What happened to all of my childhood memories? Why are you taking them away? That kind of stuff. And then this summer, there was some stuff that came out actually with a researcher here on campus, McNeil over in forestry, and some of his compatriots that have done work in Illinois. And they seem to be showing that firefly numbers were going up relative to the last few years. But I would say broadly, they're still a part of the insect apocalypse where insect life is in great decline. We may be helping the fireflies out in sort of scattered areas, but we're trying to also tell people like it's still tough to be a bug out there. And there's all these different ways that we're harming them. One thing with fireflies that we teach people about is light pollution. It hurts people that want to do stargazing, but also fireflies, they communicate visually through these flashes with one another in order to mate. And if they can't see the flashes, then they can't get to the mating. I was going to use a different F word, but this is a family show. So if there's too much like ambient light from a baseball stadium, leaving the lights on all night or what have you, that's going to harm local populations. So there's a lot to talk about with them, and people are very passionate about fireflies or lightning bugs, whatever they call them, because they're just a really nostalgic piece of summer for most people. I think a lot of people associate them with childhood. So there's always lots of passion when we talk about those.
Jonathan, have you been contacted with any? It seems like I've seen a couple of events around the state that are sort of firefly viewing events on like these agritourism top locations. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't done those yet. I know that it's some of it's here, but it's really big in Tennessee. You can go to the Great Smoky Mountains and you can see the simultaneous firefly emergence where they all come out and they flash and then they go away. But people, are driving around Kentucky looking for different populations. There's some folks who want to find the blue fireflies, which are not supposed to be very common here.
Oh, wow.
Just trying to collect them all like Pokemon and see them and experience them. I did get to do a firefly family event in Davis County, in Owensboro at the Western Kentucky Arboretum, and about 200 people came out to do little tours for fireflies and see them. And
Oh wow.
I was supposed to give this like little 30-minute presentation a couple times that people could filter through, but there were so many of them, I ended up having to do it 4 or 5 times. I can't remember. And so it was a
Wow.
lot of fun just to
A
see
lot of
how
interest.
passionate people. Yeah, exactly. They really
Man,
wanted to talk about them.
that's amazing. I see all about the synchronicity, like you said, of fireflies synchronizing. Maybe it's just my media feeds. I've made the mistake of putting in the word firefly or lightning bug, and now I'm seeing all of it. But I'm starting to see events like you just described, and very well attended events. Apparently, yeah. So that's very cool to have a themed events like that. It's pretty neat. Pretty
Is
Are
neat.
you
there
all
is there an insect that if you could wave your wand and it would have the level of visceral support from the public that you would give it that? Like you would be like, yeah, let's give this their lightning bug, their monarch, their honeybee moment. What would you got one in mind?
That's a tough question because yeah, you just picked out like the 3 microfauna that we would call the most charismatic. Like everybody loves a monarch, everybody loves a lightning bug.
That's why Brett excluded them. Yeah, he didn't want them.
People love a honeybee. The ladybugs, they often get lumped in there. And then you can
Oh,
sometimes see mantises. Some people really love mantises. Some people really hate them. But that's about the 5 insects that people are willing to accept. If I could wave my wand and maybe periodical cicadas, because to me, they deserve love. They don't deserve the scorn that they get. They're very charismatic in that people notice them, but I would prefer that people not say, "Oh, I want to destroy them all." I would prefer that people be like, "This is amazing. These ticking biological clocks in the ground emerging and screaming in trees," and really just admit that they're jealous that they can't work out their own problems in that fashion by screaming for a couple of weeks during the summer in a tree.
I mean, I can give him some tips, but
Provide some case studies. Sure. Yeah.
I feel like my people have emerged and with the periodical cicadas because I'm like we're just going outside to scream. Like
Yeah. We've
these are my people.
we've discussed before. It's very interesting how society views different insects, a cockroach versus a butterfly, and how we kind of beauty is all tied up into that. But I don't know, what is it, Brett? Is it just the beauty that some things get their day, or what?
well, I mean, flashing a bioluminescent thing on your belly is a pretty cool trick to like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if
you
I could
know,
do that,
like
I'd be more
that's
popular.
pretty tough.
Yeah.
And then like the honeybee, I think, obviously the honey's pretty sweet and cool. Winnie
True.
the Pooh
True.
connection. I don't
The original crop top.
I don't necessarily understand exactly why the monarch among butterflies. Yeah, maybe Jonathan, you have some thoughts on this, like why it.
Oh man, I have so many thoughts on what you're talking about.
Hey,
Yeah,
this
why
is
it
what we
captures the
came for. This is what
imagination.
excites me. Yes.
Why people accept certain insects and not others, basically.
Yeah.
With insects, I mean, you're talking about a group of animals that they seem the most alien out of a lot of life. They look the least like us. I think that the insects that we're talking about that seem to be accepted, there's often something about them that we recognize. So with a monarch, I think it's that migration that really speaks to people. This idea of going great distances and kind of having this sequential order of reproduction, and then going back and forth to these different spots that we don't do that necessarily, but we recognize that behavior of going and coming and returning all the time. With lightning bugs, I think it's that they're talking with their butt flashes. Ogden Nash said there is nothing eerier than walking around with a glowing posterior, but for some reason, I think it speaks to us that they're talking to each other, that we key in on that and see it as communication, and that's a humanistic element that we can touch on. With honeybees, I think it's even simpler. It's just we look at their society and we see our own reflected back
Mm.
in some ways, with a 1% at the top, the queen laying all the eggs and running the show, and then a huge workforce that's doing all the tasks in the hive.
Yeah.
Wow. I
It's
thought you were just gonna be like, "'Cause
Drones who
they're
only have
pretty."
one thing on their mind, you know.
Drones, yeah, they play Xbox all summer. They're on Battlefield,
yeah.
drinking nectar up and honey up in the colony, and then they either get to mate and have their genitals ripped off, or they're kicked out of the colony to freeze to death at the end of the growing season.
Tale as old as time.
There's no joke in that society of honeybees. No jokes.
No, it's
Yeah.
it's all
It's
business.
serious business.
Chemical. I maybe when they talk, since they dance, they kind of do the dance in a circle or in the figure eight to communicate with each other. I was trying to think of what's that song where it's from Australia. If they don't dance, then they're no friends of mine. Who sings that? I
You
can't
can
remember.
dance
Dance if you
one,
Anyway,
wanna.
two. You can leave your
yes,
friends
Yes,
behind.
that one.
that's the one time that they kind of goof around, is that they dance to talk to one another.
Which is pretty cool. Maybe that should be part of the marketing. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a feature in itself.
Bees
But
get too much marketing. They got too much PR. We need
yeah,
we need negative bee PR.
it's like
So
they can
interesting
sting
that you
you.
say that, because I have seen multiple things now on the internet that are like bees, like honeybees, man, like forget about them. They suck, or like blah blah, like that kind of thing. And I was just like thinking, in practice, what are the things that you're gonna do to exclusively help honeybees versus something else? And so it was just this like little slight distinction of like, just so you guys know, I liked pollinators back before the bees took over and went mainstream.
Before they were
Right.
cool.
I was more of
They
a
are like the pop stars of the pollinator world. You want to really follow the indie bands like the squash bee, these other kind of like little micro rock stars that people don't appreciate. The solo acts, I think, a little more. The way that we help honeybees is just beekeeping. People will say, "Oh, the honeybees are fine because beekeeping's gone up 200% in the last decade." It's like, that's great, but it doesn't do anything for the wild native bees. But we also can't just say, "Nah, forget the honeybees," because we're kind of reliant upon them for most pollination
Yeah.
services at this point.
Well, yeah, it's is there any, I know for bees, I mean, that's big business moving those around when you pollinate things, particularly down south on these huge, horticulture fields. But is what about native pollinators as a service? Is there any such thing? I know bees are well established and put them on trucks and move them around and it's being done. But I mean, is that a thing with any kind of native pollinators?
Yeah, if you go to the Pacific Northwest, you can see a lot of efforts with alfalfa bee and making sure that they've got all the kind of clear airways that they need to get places. There's little signs about when they're flying across the road, and people will take effort to not hit them. I wouldn't say that they're collecting them and releasing them necessarily. You can see
Mhm.
that somewhat with the blue orchard bee. I think that you can buy those. People will rear those up, and you can release them in an orchard. But it's much tougher because with a honeybee, you kind of just are like, yeah, I'm the beekeeper, but really they're doing it all themselves. With all these native independent pollinators, there's a lot more effort that goes into trying to rear those up, unfortunately. So it's not as popular.
Yeah, it seems like there's of course pollination. That's a whole thing. Brett mentioned honey earlier. We all know honey, and most of us really enjoy honey. But the pollination and farming, the importance of that is well established. I mean, if you like food, you're probably a fan of pollination. Um, but somebody gave an incredible talk, and it was years ago that I attended, and talked about all of our native pollinators, and they do a lot of work. And I did not realize here in Kentucky, I mean, I'm sure it's true of other places, but just the sheer amount of other pollinators that are out there, besides just bees. Like you said, they are the absolute superstars of that world. And then, folks with greenhouses and high tunnels, I guess bees don't always work in those situations.
You
It's
can
a
see
little bit
bumblebees dropped into there. You can get
bumblebees.
hives from different companies, and you pop them in there, and they'll do some vibration pollination for you. Bumblebees are very vibratory, and so they'll help shake some pollen loose. It's not necessarily that the plants need obligate insect pollination, but it's more of it helps to increase the pollen that's getting spread because they're so big and fluffy and kind of buzzy that they help with it.
There is
Yeah.
So
nothing
you're
I love
telling
more
me,
than
oh,
finding a sleepy bee on a flower. It is
Yeah,
just chef's kiss. Like, it doesn't matter what kind. They're adorable, especially when they're just like pollen drunk and you're like, "Hello." That is living right there.
yep.
well, like he said,
Fall asleep there.
they're just running on vibes, baby.
Yeah, I'm so
Literally,
jealous.
bumblebees running on
Yeah,
all the
That's my
that's
vibes.
such
next
a
life. I
yeah.
just want to
That's
be a
so yeah.
sleepy flower bee.
I can see that.
I mean, I wondered why like the native pollinators aren't more popular. I guess once you really do a deep dive into like the interactions and what they need and what they pollinate and the intricate systems that they pollinate in, it's all kind of different, isn't it? I mean, are they either super specific to a certain plant or it's a specific process? I mean,
Are
it's
you
pretty
trying to lead us?
incredible.
Are you trying to lead us into
No, I am not.
plant
What are you
insect
talking about?
interactions, Ray?
It's my
Because
obvious segue. It's the only kind I have.
I like it. Well, I feel like I was resisting you, and I did not realize it until just
No,
now. I was
it's
like,
what we
Ray
do.
keeps asking these questions. Yeah, so you're talking about like plants that have plants where there's a specific insect with a specific. plant. Is that what you're talking about, Ray?
Oh yeah, just the insect world in itself. I mean, maybe my Honey I Shrunk the Kids is where my interest started all those years ago. I was like, wow, is that really what they look like? Ants and other, insects. But yeah, it's just fascinating. And the relationships, sometimes it's a mutual kind of thing, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
some weird mixture of chemical signatures that go back and forth,
Classic
and it's just
classic
pretty
relationships.
incredible.
I was like, we could be talking about anything right now,
Yeah, we could
Sometimes
be
it's chemicals,
not
sometimes
just
it's
plants and
mutual.
insects.
all the
What
things.
bar did you go to? That's dependent.
Yeah, well, pheromones. I mean, we talked about the bee culture,
But I
the
think
colony of honeybees.
like for me, one of the things that is coming to mind with what you're talking about is like certain butterflies have very unique relationships with certain plants. The monarch, we've already talked about the monarch and given it its airtime, but I feel like the monarch and the milkweed as part of a butterfly station both
Yeah,
had like a glow up in the public consciousness as a result of their curious interactions. What is the like in that or other? If there's another one that you want to again give to the punk rock in pollinators out there, Jonathan, instead of the monarch, like are there other ones that come to mind in that kind of obligate, special relationship?
Sure. I mean, when we're talking about plant and insect interactions, I think we'll probably talk mostly about the negative ones as we kind of go through the show. But pollination is the sort of positive, mutualistic view of plant insect interactions, where there's been this evolutionary period where now these insects are specially adapted to feed on specific flowers and visit certain plants, and those plants are now reliant upon them, and everybody's winning. Everybody's getting pollinated, everybody's getting nectar and pollen and getting the food resources that they need. So it's all good all around. This has been going on for a long time. We have different, I would call them pollination syndromes. That's the term we tend to use. So this kind of suite of traits that specific flowers are going to have that attract specific pollinators. And it's not usually as species specific as kind of you were alluding to with the monarch necessarily, but it's more about like a broad category of pollinating insects or other pollinating animals like a bat or a bird. So with pollination syndromes, if you see something that's white and night opening and it's very fragrant, it's most likely pollinated by moths because of all that suite of traits. The moths are most likely to encounter it, and therefore they're going to be the pollinators for it. If it's flat, like a platform, and kind of bowl shaped and open, think like a sunflower or maybe a coneflower or a black-eyed Susan, that kind of stuff. If it's kind of in that shape, it's usually an insect that needs to land in order to feed. So that you're talking about bees, maybe some beetles mixed in there. Bees really like blue and white and kind of yellow colors. They don't necessarily need the great odor. They just need those visual cues. Some flowers have nectar guides at the center that tell them, hey, sister, like this is where the good stuff is. Come in here and get it. And then get all coated in my gooey pollen, and we'll move this around. If you look at something and it's kind of reddish in color, insects don't see red very well. It's the end of the visual spectrum that they're not very familiar with. So that's probably something that a bird or a bat goes to. Those will be usually bigger flowers with more resources in them as well. There's things that flies like. Some flies are pollinators. They look like bees and act like bees, so they visit the same kinds of plants. Others are tricked into pollination. These are the flies that are usually going to look for rotting meat and decaying things out in nature. I don't know if any of you have ever smelled the dead horse arum, but it smells like what it's
Corpse
named. Yeah,
flower.
corpse flower, skunk cabbage, these kind of nasty smelling things. They also will be kind of reddish or purple in color. This is kind
Mhm.
of the exception to that rule that I was mentioning before because they look like a big pile of dead meat. And then the flies will go over there and be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to lay so many eggs here. And then they wander around. They're like, this isn't right. I don't like it. And by the time they figure it out, it's too late, and their hairy bodies are covered in pollen. And then they'll fly to the next one and get tricked the same way. But then they may help spread that pollen around. So there's lots of these
It,
different syndromes, but they're kind of broader than monarchs,
it
bee,
is
milkweed.
insane. It's insane to me to think about the way evolution has made, you see these insects that look like flowers, like the one that came to mind that we don't have here, but is the mantis that looks like orchids, the
Yeah,
orchid
orchid
mantis.
mantises, the ghost
Orchid mantises.
mantises, orchid mantis. Yeah,
I mean, it's insane. And then in the reverse, you've got flowers that look like, you're saying like the corpse flower. Not only does it have the smell of rotting meat, but it also has the color, but it also, like, most of them have like almost these little, they look like muscle tissues or something, like when you look at them. And so it's like visually, or ones that look like the plants that look like the, male or female version of the insect it wants to
Right.
pollinate. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Plants don't have eyeballs that we're currently aware of. Like, how is this possible?
Just
It
the
blows
ones that
my
looked like
mind.
that were the ones that
A
carried
lot of
forward.
reps.
Like,
Yeah.
A
how
lot
do
of
you
A lot
get,
of
reps.
like,
reps.
you
Yeah, a
get
lot of reps.
so specific, I mean, like,
Yeah.
the orchid mantis, you can't even find it. If you can look at the blooms and be like, "I don't see a bug." That's how much it looks like it, and that's just, to think about all of how much time it took to get to that point
Mm.
is just mind-boggling to me.
I think about that and the fact that you were saying all those reps that have to occur in order to drive
Yeah.
that species to that appearance. I mean, the time scale is mind numbing for a human to consider the hundreds of millions of years that must have took. But then also to think about the fragility of that setup, to think about the fact that, okay, what happens when that orchid goes away? Well, that mantis
Yeah.
is cooked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We've been able
done.
to
Yeah.
use this in weird ways. Darwin had this plant that it had this exact length of corolla, and so he's like, well, there's definitely a moth that's out there that has that long of a tongue, and it turned out to be true. But once that plant goes, or that moth goes, it's just a very fragile setup. That kind of specialization, while
Uh-huh.
beautiful and elegant and interesting, it's also not the best plan long term to
Yeah.
keep your species around.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I'm just, like, thrown every time I think about how these, like, super specific. I'm just like, this just doesn't, like, the science. I know it's like, obviously the science is there, but the science isn't sciencing in my brain for it to be so identical and so specific. And like you said, you get, a disease that knocks out that plant, and that insect is screwed.
Yes.
And that's just crazy.
All
This
of a
is why I
sudden,
was so excited when you asked me to do this particular topic, because when we talk about plant insect interactions, I think that can sound very like too big, right? It can sound like very philosophical. Like people are thinking I'm going to come on here as this graybeard professor and be like, it's a beautiful ballet of nature, and we should appreciate it. And that's true and right, and I believe that. But there's also the practical side of it, which is what I live in most of the time. Somebody's got a caterpillar on their
Mhm.
tomato. They want to know what to do about it. But then to get to that point of having a human with a tomato plant and having a caterpillar that specializes only on that plant is a fascinating geological evolutionary history. Like the way that we've arrived at today's moment, this frozen piece of time that we live in, is crazy. Like to think about, why is that caterpillar only eating your tomato? There's a squash plant right next to it. Why doesn't it eat all of that too? Why doesn't it eat the entire plant? Why does it sometimes get these parasitoids that land on it? Like some of those caterpillars on your tomato plant have all these little white cocoons sticking out their back. How'd they find that? And you just start to think about how much everything in the insect world is wrapped around this relationship between
Mhm.
plants and insects. And it becomes this beautiful ballet. It becomes this weird, crazy thing that's actually delivered us the world as we understand it. If you think
Mhm.
about the color of the planet, people, it's blue, but then there's all this green tissue around us as well. If you believe a lot of the entomological literature, that's us, baby. That's because of bugs. Like we've driven the plants to do that in so many ways, and the plants have driven the insects. We're talking
Mhm.
about the two titanic groups of life on Earth. The multicellular life is insects and angiosperms. These are the two big groups, and the reason for that is because they've been pinging off of each other for 400 million years, trying to figure out what to do about each other, and it gives us what we consider our planet and our home. I think that's amazing.
and it's
I'm just,
why the scope and the scale of time is what's wild to me, thinking about
mhm.
that. If you could kind of fast forward through all those strata of differentiation and take slices, like you said, we're living in a slice right now, and it's happening currently. I mean, as we
Mhm.
sit here, there's all of these adaptations and counter adaptations going on, and it's not always mutualistic. I mean, there's chemical warfare going on in the insect world and between plants and insects, and sometimes it's mutual, sometimes it's not. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And then you throw us in there with all of our so-called advanced interactions, and yeah, that makes it really interesting. I always think in my head, what's it going to look like 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now? I mean, what's our impact on these interactions? I mean, is there going to be some insect that looks like a ray that people won't bother it because it's weird out there and it's still, I don't know. It just, it's happening now, as we speak. So it's pretty cool.
It's a very
Pretty
large
cool.
exoskeleton.
Yes, yeah. It's what was the movie? There's a movie about that a planet actually adapted to look like a person. I forget, it was a horror movie. It's 15,
Was
20
it
years
Men in
old.
Black?
I think it was Mimic. It was actually the movie is Mimic, Jonathan. If you've
Oh
not
yeah,
watched that, do you?
Del Toro.
Was that not? Yes, was that not a cool movie? But that also got me interested in the insect world. I'm like, that's a pretty incredible concept. It
Yeah,
was.
the
Yeah.
roaches look like people, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
yeah.
was pretty incredible.
I think
Yeah,
I know some of them.
yeah. Well, you know, that's the
The
interactions
roaches
that are
look like
not
people.
beneficial.
But
Yeah.
or like we didn't even talk about bugs that look insects that look like other insects. So like the viceroy, right, is
Right.
Kentucky State butterfly.
So why is
And
that? Yeah, why does it look like that?
why is it Kentucky State butterfly?
No,
I actually
no.
can't answer that question. But
Is it a look-alike? I mean, is that through some
yeah,
mechanism? I've
right.
often wondered, but I've never
And
looked it up.
Jonathan, please correct me, but my understanding was that it looks like the monarch so that it tells predators that it doesn't taste very good. Right?
Monarchs, yeah, they have a warning
Oh,
system, an aposematic coloration that advertises their distasteful nature. We'll talk about milkweed and monarchs as we go, but they're absorbing the cardiac glycosides as they feed as larvae on the milkweed. They're able to sequester those compounds. There's lots of famous research showing the results of feeding on monarchs. There's this picture, it's a blue jay, and they feed it a monarch caterpillar and it starts throwing up like a freshman. So I think that there's a rich history of literature of people pointing out why they will then associate these colors with, oh, that's bad, I shouldn't eat it. So then, yes, there are suites of butterflies that will then look variously similar to the monarch, and they gain some of the same protection. That's somewhat controversial. There's some people I think that argue the viceroy does also have its own chemical protection, and so it's not a
oh,
case of that type of
Okay.
mimicry. But it's also good that then all of the things that are orange and black, that means that's
synergistic.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's synergism, brand
yeah.
synergism.
Right.
Yep.
You're saying don't eat any of us. Like just trust that brown, black, and orange mixed together means don't eat it.
It's a
But somebody's got to
big
die for that to
negative.
work. Somebody's got to get eaten first to prove it to the new
The
blue jays.
sacrificial
And
butterfly.
exactly,
Wasn't it the
exactly.
red color in nature? It's like a warning color, and that's why people were reluctant to eat tomatoes at first. There's like some of all these anecdotal stories that red's the danger color, and I often wondered if that gives things like boxed elderbug nymphs like an advantage because we'll get people calling into the office and in kind
Mhm.
of a panic because I mean these things are very red. I mean I don't know if that's some sort of advantage or not, but yeah, the red, the danger color. Yeah.
It's also the color of our blood. And if blood is on the outside of something, that's not good. So I think there's lots of psychological aspects to the color red
Yeah.
about why it's the color for the stop sign, why it's the color of danger, why it's the color of pain and math. I'm always used red for my math folder because I didn't like that class.
The
So
danger,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, danger I think is
Why
tied.
all the light in vampire bars is always red in the movies, you know?
Yeah.
True.
At first, I thought
It's
you meant like
bad.
a real vampire bar, and I wanted to know what you got up to on the weekends. But
It's
I
like,
was mostly like,
"Brad,
where is it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I noticed which color you're
running
In the
wearing,
around.
Brad."
movies that he takes with his phone.
It's only
Uh,
open at night. So you
but I
mentioned
didn't
the like
realize that
kind of
about the
like
viceroy. Oh,
the idea of the monarch takes in these chemicals from the plant and then in turn has some, that has some value to the plant. I'm sorry, to the butterfly. Are there other kinds of examples of that where there's kind of like a special nutrition or a special something or other that insects can take in from the plant material that then is advantageous to them one way or the other, besides your vitamins and nutrients and things that my mom wants me to eat plants to get?
oh man, you have used the skeleton key to kind of unlock this whole discussion. I feel like with
the
that
box
question
is
of
coming open.
yeah of what's going on. So why would milkweed produce something that then benefits a butterfly, right? Like that's kind of the key question there of what is at play. And the truth is that if we look at plant and insect coevolution, the monarch is taking advantage of something that the milkweed produced to protect itself from herbivores writ large. So not everything can eat milkweed. If your cows eat milkweed, it's not good for them. If you eat milkweed, that's not good for you. But monarchs as a group, as in addition to the tussock moth that feeds on milkweed, oleander aphids, milkweed longhorn beetles, these are things that have evolved and adapted to be able to key in on traits of the milkweed and are able to use it to find their host and then to choose their host. So it's a secondary plant compound that at some point in time helped the milkweed to avoid other predators or other herbivores, I should say, other things that want to eat it. But then these other insects figured a way out to get over that and then use it to their advantage. So it's this kind of, I'll call it a cold war. It's this insect plant cold war that's been going on for about I would say this one that we're referring to, maybe about 200 million years, where the plants and insects are just trying to outsmart each other, not to put too much sort of like intelligence behind it, but they're trying to figure out a way of avoiding the insects, which causes irradiation in life. And then the insects figure out a way to take advantage of that, which then causes another radiation of life. And that's why we have so many plants and so many insects crawling around the world, is because of these coevolutionary processes that they're going through together. That's slightly controversial. I am a believer in coevolution as we talk about it, but there are other questions about which came first, the chicken or the egg. Some of the adaptations that we might talk about may predate certain angiosperms or the plants that the insects specialize on, but it's still a trait that allows them to then take advantage of it and further specialize. So if I was going to get to like the root of what you're talking about, we would have to go back to a discussion that Richard Southwood started in like 1973-ish. He has a publication that came out on the hurdles to herbivory. So the other question I think that comes up is, well, if insects are so good at eating plants, why don't they just eat all the plants? Why do we have plants still if insects are so good at this? And the truth is that it's kind of hard to eat plants for a variety of reasons. And insects have to overcome the three hurdles, which are attachment, desiccation, and nutrition. So they have to be able to hold on to the plant and attach to it in some fashion to get to the food that they want, the leaf, the flower, the wood, the tree root, whatever it is. The desiccation part, they were already kind of pre-adapted for. Insects have their exoskeletons, which means that they're coated in this layer of wax, which helps to seal their moisture in. So they're already kind of pre-gamed to be good at avoiding desiccation. But there are other things that you can do to avoid desiccating on a plant. You can construct a silken nest like a tent caterpillar. You can be a bagworm and live in your little bag and be out in the sun. You can even feed at night or close your spiracles, and that helps to reduce moisture loss. And then the nutrition part, which you were getting at, yes, your mom wants you to eat broccoli because it's full of vitamins and minerals, and insects need those vitamins and minerals as well. But there's also some things about plants that make them sort of poor choices as food. And the big one is they're nitrogen limited. Most plants aren't going to provide a lot of free nitrogen to an organism that exclusively feeds on plants. And that's why you see things eat so much when they're herbivores. There's compensatory feeding. They have to eat more, or they may have a prolonged development time. With cicadas, we see that. They don't get a lot of nitrogen through the tree sap that they're sucking through the roots. So they take at least a couple of years to develop. The periodical cicadas took that to an extreme where they're now at 13 and 17 years. But that is because their food is so bad. If you just drink root beer mixed with ale-8 every morning, noon, and night, and that was the only thing you ate, you wouldn't grow very fast either. But your diabetes medication bill probably would. Uh, these are the things that limit the insects. So they've got adaptations for that too. So they might eat more themselves. You see caterpillars eat a lot. They'll consume a lot of tissue. Other insects, they have special chambers in their gut that allow them to extract all the nitrogen from the food. Some of them have special chambers in their guts with endosymbionts, things that help them to strip more nutrition from their food. That adaptation is taken to its extreme with termites. Termites now have special gut bacteria that help them to eat cellulose, which should not be very nutritious at all, but they're able to do so because of this special adaptation. So those are the three things that insects had to overcome in order to get onto the plants and eat them. And then after that, it gets into all of this other stuff like you were referring to with milkweed. I don't want to keep talking if there are questions or comments or anything, but I can rant for longer if you want me to about what's going on there.
So I got a couple of questions for like
Yeah.
so you're talking about the desiccation part. Is that sort of just like the idea that in order to eat a plant, you kind of have to expose yourself to the air and to the wind and to the sun and all those things?
Precisely. If you're on a leaf, you're out in the sun. If you're feeding in the daytime, insects are small, and so they don't lose water at the same rate necessarily that we would. But yeah, if you are a cow and you're outside eating plants all day, you're getting hot and sweaty too. So desiccation or just moisture loss, I think, is an hurdle to herbivory.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. The part about the nitrogen availability, because I mean I sort of, in as rough proxies to each other, I've sort of come to think as nitrogen is kind of like this analog to protein for us of like building structures, and it's this the building block of like amino acids, which then build to proteins, and then um so the idea of like, yeah, you're trying to bodybuild or grow quickly, and all you can eat are, yeah, those things. And like I could say if I was on alate and uh root beer, I
Root
would
beer.
not have very much energy to build my silken nest that I build every day for myself just to
That's
stay
right.
moist.
Well, and insects, they can't boil chicken and broccoli and then eat that and go pump iron. So yeah, they
Right.
are limited to what they can get access to. Some of them will chase the nitrogen. They may go from parts of the plant to other parts of the plant, like aphids and scales. You can see this with where at certain times of the year they exist in the leaves. At certain times of the year they're on the stems and trunk because that's where the nitrogen is. They're able to locate it. I don't want to give it too much directionality. They're not smart enough to know like, oh, my sons and daughters need to go to where the nitrogen is rich. It's just the way they are. It's the way their biological machinery is programmed.
Hmm.
Uh, Kind of beyond what we're talking about with this introduction to how they did it, the I think other question becomes, why aren't all insects eating all plants all the time? So like, why aren't they all polyphagous? Polyphagous insects are not the norm. If you've not heard the term polyphagy, it just means you're able to eat lots of different things, polyphagy. And we have polyphagous insects. A lot of them tend to be invasive species because they're brought into a naive environment. Something like a Japanese beetle is able to ride roughshod over all of these plants that have no defensive adaptations to it because it's a new player in the game and they don't have something that can stop it. There are other insects that are always sort of polyphagous. Think of locusts historically, biblically, even locusts are able to eat just about anything. That means that grasshoppers, which is where locusts come from, they also are tend to be polyphagous. Polyphagy is good because it means you can find food wherever you go. Basically, it's also kind of an evolutionary advantage. I alluded to with the fireflies before that we're kind of in this insect apocalypse. We're losing a lot of insect life. The bad news about that is that it includes mostly the insects we like, and the ones that we would consider beneficial, and the polyphagous insects it's not happening to, the pests it's not happening to, and so they will actually become the last standing survivors, and then they'll be the things that radiate out into new life. So instead of having all the butterflies and fireflies that we love, they'll be the descendants of Japanese beetles and locusts and things like that in the future that continue that
We
polyphagous transition into specialization.
Do those tend to be higher order insects, I guess, or more complex?
One thing that we see with insects that are herbivores is that they are more concentrated in the higher orders. So, just to describe what we mean as a higher order of insects, higher order means more recent in evolutionary history, basically. Or sometimes it can be to talk about like bigger orders of insects. The lower orders would be things like Odonata, which are the dragonflies and damselflies, which we consider to be more primitive insects. Right now, I would argue the highest order of insects is Hymenoptera, which includes the bees, ants, wasps, and sawflies, and that's because we see degrees of socialization there, where they are becoming social insects more and more pointedly as we talk about wasps to bees and things like that, and ants. So that's the high order of insects. There's also beetles. There's also hemipterans or the true bugs. You could even throw the flies in there. So this is a group that we consider the kind of the newest bugs, the new money, the big bug groups that are dominating the planet right now. And
What
yes,
you
a lot.
described with the idea that the things that we like might go away and they might be replaced by these other things that we don't like, it feels reminiscent of what has happened, what Joe Rogan has done to my internet. I used to have this lovely place of just these organisms that didn't really have a self preservation instinct, or really, just they were just vibing for a while, and then the rise of these particular new players and how that shift has happened. I'm feeling a little pain of loss for the internet ecosystem I used to know.
Okay, I didn't know that we could do this on this show, but yeah, like I'm a podcaster. I do a couple of different podcasts, and I'm ashamed of like admitting to my hobby nowadays because yeah, podcasting has been Joe
Yeah.
Roganified to the point where people think that means you're like a person in the manosphere talking about why you should eat steak every morning, noon, and night, and then
That's right.
lifting weights and stuff. It's like, no, I talk about bugs. Like, I'm a weirdo in a
Like, no,
very
no,
different
we
way.
eat nitrogen here. We don't.
Yeah,
That's not
This
yeah.
is
what we're.
rigor research. Yeah.
No more
Yeah.
protein. No more protein.
It is cool. I think I love what you're talking about, though. We're talking about like the evolution of an information sphere, the internet and podcasting and stuff. It does have similar pressures that we see in the biological world, and survival of the fittest rules in all situations. It feels like.
Well, I'm thinking that the cockroach someday will be beautiful because if it continues to be besieged by higher order of life forms, it'll have to market itself in such a way that we'll find it beautiful at some point. Or, I mean,
That'll be very tragic when the cockroaches discover marketing. That'll be a different world.
yeah, that'll be the day that we lose. Yeah,
Let's hope
maybe
it doesn't
so. I don't know.
follow CCD's social media accounts teaching about
Yeah,
marketing.
that's why all of this is so fascinating. You know, the life cycles, but also the pressures and the co-development, or the communal nature of some insect orders versus the solitary nature of others, and all of this just really changes kind of the population, doesn't it? I mean, just huge
Yeah,
impacts.
yeah. I mean, just to kind of thread the needle on what I was saying before about why we don't have all these polyphagous insects. Uh, there are polyphagous ones, but then we are more commonly going to see oligophagous and monophagous insects, things that are more specialized, and that's because of this pressure that you were just alluding to. Is it's good and great to be polyphagous, but it's also good and great if you can specialize and then create a radiation of life. So as you focus in on one particular genus of plants, you can become the thing that specializes on that plant. You face less competition, and you're able to create new life forms as you go through that. I don't want to attribute an intelligence to evolution. I keep doing it just because it's easier to converse about, but that's what we're talking about here, is that there's this degree of specialization usually on closely related plants. So think of a cabbage looper and cruciferous plants. It's able to take advantage of all of them. Some of these, the hand of nature is at play. Some of these, the hand of man is at play, where we breed a plant and then the insect figures out, oh, well, that's the same thing that I usually eat. So I'll eat Brussels sprouts and cabbage and everything else because it all tastes the same to them. The monophagous ones, that's when they feed on one plant species. That's the most specialization that you can have. Think of things like a holly leaf miner or what have you. These are things that they don't cross boundaries. They stick with one plant, which is great. You have a lot less competition. But as we alluded to before, it's a very fragile system as well, because if holly goes away, holly leaf miner goes away. We've seen this in the United States. If we go back to the time where we lost the chestnut, there's an untold number of insects and other things that specialized on the chestnut that all went away at the same time. And then the things that specialized on those herbivores went away as well. So you're talking maybe 50 or 60 different species that all poof were gone with the advent of chestnut blight. So it's great and cool, but it's also a very precarious situation that
Yeah.
you're putting yourself in
Well,
evolutionarily.
so as you're talking here, and you're talking about the idea of eating plants, that the insects are eating plants, and the difficulty associated with that. What you're making me think a little bit about. So one of the coolest parts about cows and other ruminants is that they can take sun-powered, cellulose-heavy grass and they can convert that into energy themselves. And so I mean, I didn't even really think about it this way, but insects are doing that too. This is kind of what you were mentioning with the termites and with some of the other like that because I'm thinking like what are the things that plants can do that they can't do? Like, so plants can photosynthesize. They've got us all beat in that regard. And then like the plants can't really move in the same with the same regularity that insects can. And I mean, we can't do either of those things. So we just sort of watch and become entomologists, I guess, in the process because of how cool that is. But it's just making me think about that, like that step of converting solar energy into animal life and the role that they play in that. It's really interesting. It just kind of went off for me as you were talking.
Yeah, it becomes the thin patina on top of plants, the base herbivores that then are consumed by other things to create the intricate webs of life that we exist around. This kind of complex machinery that makes up nature insects are the bottom line. They're the front door to a lot of this. You get from them to bigger insects, to insects that are eaten by bigger animals, all the way up to people. Cows, they enter there in a different matrix, I guess. But yes, they start with the primary producers and moving up. So it is a beautiful and weird thing that at some point, just like Superman, we are collecting solar energy, but we do it through our mouth and our stomach, and the insects do the same thing.
Yeah, and like I'll eat a tomato, but if I were to eat the tomato leaves, I wouldn't get a whole lot of out of that as a
Right.
not not adapted for that. Um,
And
yeah,
the question becomes not only how are the insects extracting the nutrients that they need from the plants, but also how do they find the plants? You mentioned that plants don't move, but plants do sort of migrate around with seeds and wind and yada yada yada. And insects, they live in a complex world that's much bigger than them. So this is where we start to get into the secondary plant compounds, which have driven a lot of the evolution of insects and then therefore plants. Secondary plant compounds are really cool and delicious things that we all enjoy. What's your favorite one, Alexis? Caffeine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
for the
that one.
sake of the podcast, we'll go with caffeine.
Okay. Yeah. Other people might enjoy nicotine. Some people might enjoy tannins if they like a good wine. I'm a big fan of capsaicin. I like hot stuff. And so these are all compounds that the plant makes that ostensibly it doesn't need to. That's why they're secondary. They're not primary factors in its success for life, but they become defensive compounds that protect it from greater herbivory. So nicotine, caffeine, THC, cardiac glycosides that are in milkweed, all of these things ostensibly are supposed to stop the plant from getting eaten. We often utilize these things. There's all kinds of web comics about this, right? About like, oh, I evolved this so that I won't be eaten. And then there's this picture of people like enjoying all this
Humans like
stuff.
bet.
Yes, exactly. We will see about that. And then we invent cigarettes and hot sauce, and it's a very different world for that plant.
But then they
But
perpetuate that plant population by growing more of it. So there
right,
you
so
go.
who's the real
Who's
victor in
farming
all of
I
you?
this?
don't know. I don't know.
The question of what this does to insects, though, that really started to get pulled apart in the early 60s, late 50s. There's a paper, a really foundational paper by Gottfried Frankl called The Raison d'etre, I can't speak French, so I'm butchering it, of secondary plant substances, where he argues that these are foundational elements in the history of coevolution between plants and insects, where the insects were at first repelled by these secondary plant compounds, but then through random chance and mutation, as argued by another paper, Ehrlich and Raven in the 60s, some insects are able to turn back around and then successfully colonize a defended plant and then radiate on that plant species and become multiple forms of life there. And then the plant has to do the same thing again to try and avoid them. And that's how we get these explosions of life in the fossil record up to today. And so that's what we see with insects that focus on specific plants, is that they are able to smell those cardiac glycosides. They're able to detect the thing that makes Brussels sprouts taste bitter to some people. And they're able to say, that is my host. That is my food. I'm going to fly to that. I'm going to lay my eggs on that. My babies are going to eat that. I ate that. It's a great system. There are other things at play when they arrive there to select certain plants. I don't want to discount that. Some plants are going to have higher sugar or alcohol contents or what have you, so they're a better host. But at the core, they're using something that the plant has produced to protect itself, oftentimes against the plant, in order to colonize it and feed on it. And then Alexis gets really mad because all of her cut flowers are getting attacked by these specific kinds of insects.
I mean, it's a
The
summary here of
eaters.
moves and counter moves. I mean, goodness gracious.
It's the Cold War. I
It
love
is.
it's a
It
Cold
is.
War analogy. It is
It's a
Khrushchev
stalemate.
and Kennedy. It's all, yes.
It's like
Like
what was it, Band of Brothers, where there's that one field where nobody would cross because it's a stalemate. Yes,
yes.
it's that. Yeah.
And at some points, we get to look around us and see the stalemate, that things are at this equilibrium, that the insects aren't winning and the plants not winning, and it all looks fine. And we say, oh, that's not bad. It's fine that that oak tree has 300 different species of gall insects on it. They're not hurting it. But at some point in history, that might not have been true. And it may not be true again in the future, where those galls may become more problematic. Everything is in evolution is this snapshot in time, and we can never speak with as much certainty as we would perhaps like to.
Or some people do.
But by the
Right.
time it changes, we'll be gone, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
That
yeah.
I just have a quick vibe check question. Does anyone
Okay.
else think that when you squash stink bugs that it kind of smells like cilantro?
It does.
I've never
yeah.
gotten that personally, but I don't like cilantro, so
Right.
maybe
People
that's me.
people people look at me like I'm crazy. Okay, thank you, Jonathan.
No,
I'm
there's
gonna
a
say
like a
expert.
compound, right? Like it's the
Yeah, it's a
same
known
Yeah.
thing, isn't it,
smell
or
compound.
something? Yeah.
Bed bugs are
It's
also
real.
often described as coriander smelling. So it's something within the
Hmm.
Hemiptera that they often smell like coriander because yeah, cilantro is gross.
Yeah,
That's why they're so
it's
delicious with
it's
lime.
nasty. I cannot stand cilantro. Sorry,
Okay,
guys.
so I have a question that might not be any like I don't know
Oh
where
man,
you
she's
might
been
take it.
saving
Maybe
this
it's a
one.
whole other episode, but what you were talking about led me into it. So there's this and I think I've like chatted with you a little bit about this before, but in the flower world especially there's this idea going around that using molasses, like a diluted molasses on plants to raise the brix content, which is the sugar content of the plants, will keep certain orders of insects from feeding on them because the sugar is too high, and they're like, whoa, my diabetes medication hasn't come in yet and I can't feed on that.
You're
So
applying it through the irrigation,
no, well, irrigation,
like
but
through the
a lot of
roots.
the time it's foliar. It depends on,
Oh,
I think,
okay.
the type of insect, but foliar is what I've seen the most of. And it just, when you were talking about, how the plants, maybe, the capsaicin or whatever that they're developed to push them away, is that humans helping the plant's not doing it, but we're basically doing it for them? Or is that all a load of kapooey?
So we have talked about this, and I'm very intrigued by the idea. And I will
Yeah,
say, at like a base evolutionary level,
fundamental level.
like we've been talking about, I could see where it would work. So as I was alluding to, there are host finding mechanisms within insects. So they find their host based on some of these secondary plant compounds. Sometimes there's a visual level of it looks like the leaf looks like this or the flower looks like that, and so they know it's their particular food source. But then they are making decisions on a plant by plant, maybe even leaf by leaf level of this is the best part to bite, this is the best place to feed, or this is the best place to lay eggs. So if you change the taste of the plant in terms of the sugar content, I could see where it would confound an insect and they would be like, this isn't right. Everything else says this is food. But now that I'm getting to this part where I actually sample it, the signals are wrong. And when we talk about insects, they are kind of computational. They are taking data from nature and then their brain is unlocking a series of behaviors based on the information that they're receiving. And if they bite a leaf or insert their needle like mouthpart into a leaf and they receive an insane amount of sugar back, there may not be that unlocking mechanism that induces the further feeding behavior. When we see Japanese beetles, for example, fight or attack a plant, what they do is at first they bite the plant and it's like, okay, this tastes like food. But then there's something about specific trees or specific genuses of trees that says, oh, this is tastier. It's got the right sugar content and all these other compounds. But if we can alter that, it might mean that they get confused and their brain isn't induced to continue biting that plant. So I could see where it would work. I don't have any data in my
Yeah,
chest
yeah.
pocket here that proves that, so I'm not going to
No,
publicly endorse
totally.
it.
I was
But
I didn't
I
wanna
would
put you too
say,
much on the spot,
no,
but
no, that's fine. That's my life. But I will say that it makes a certain amount of sense why that might work against
Mhm,
certain insects,
mhm.
particularly chewing insects. I don't see how that would
Inducing.
impact an aphid. An aphid
Right.
would drink that and be like, heck yeah, sugar. All right, all the time, sugar. I don't know that a biting pest would feel the same way though.
Mhm.
If
So
these
is it the
ecosystems are
molasses on the surface that's the, or is it like taking it into the?
So it's so when you're spraying them down with the diluted molasses, they are taking in some of that through the stomatas, right? So they are taking
Mhm.
in, and you can, of a surface that has been hit with molasses, raise the bricks, like the internal
Inside the
bricks
leaf.
of it, right?
Mhm.
It's not like a long-term thing, like you're doing it
Sure.
every week to keep
Sure.
that up.
Hmm.
But yeah, and foliar feeding in general is kind of a weird thing.
It's
We could
very
do a
weird.
whole
Yeah, I've
episode
done
on
some.
foliar versus soil
I
feeding.
would love that. I would learn a lot from you about that because yeah,
Well,
the whole
I want to learn more, so that could be my excuse to like really deep dive into that.
nerd.
But yeah, there's a big thing on in the insect world about people saying, "Oh no, I just spray my plants with molasses every week and I don't have any insect problems at all." And I'm like,
It feels
it
good.
feels
Like
like
it's a
there's
feel
something there,
good
right? Like just
thing,
like Jonathan said, there's like a fundamental
But
thing there, but it's like,
There's so many levers that may be being
yeah, and
pulled, both
it's
known and unknown.
right, and, how much of that I feel like it's
Yeah.
the scenario we hear in Extension all the time, well, "Well, I did it and it works for me, but the person my neighbor did it and it didn't work for them." Well, yeah, what's the soil like? What was the temperature out? What was all
yeah.
these other things? Is it replicable?
And
And that's
sometimes
what,
the
like
feel good things, that's like danger territory because it's like, oh, it just
yeah,
feels like it would make sense. And so you're just led to exactly
right,
Jonathan's
right.
point of like,
You're
Little do
certainly
they
not gonna
oh,
hurt
know.
your plant
I mean, I love
besides,
molasses, so I
did I
just
talk
prefer
over
drinking the
you?
irrigation water.
Were you
So,
going to say something else? Ray, were you
what?
going
well,
to say something else? Did I talk over you earlier?
no, no, not at all. I was just going to say it's just insane, the sensitivity level of ecosystems that we're talking about, and all of the interactions that are at play. And I just think, I was trying to think of the book. I mentioned it to you the other day, Alexis. I think it's The Drowned World or something, that, talked about a period in, the Earth's scenario in this particular book. Like, it had gotten warmer and the plants had gotten bigger and the insects had gotten huge. But these tiny little changes led to all these differentiations, these different interactions, and it just had all of these impacts because these systems are so fragile, and the web is really a web. It's so interconnected, and it's just fascinating. Like you're saying, this one practice is done, but what we're observing, how do we attribute that, or can it be? I mean, it's all pretty fascinating, the connectivity between all of these systems. I mean, it's pretty daunting, pretty incredible.
It's
Yeah.
Well, and we're
fine,
just
everything's
always like
fine.
we're poking dominoes at all times, right? We're always
Yeah.
out there, just like we are the masters of our
Yeah.
domain. We get to do whatever we want, and then yeah, people get to do decades worth of research on the cascading effects of that, and say like,
Mhm.
well, we probably maybe shouldn't have done that, ought
Well,
to.
on
Yeah.
hindsight, maybe
Right.
not such a good thing.
I love that. I've been seeing it go around. It's like we owe our entire existence to, an inch of soil and and the fact that it rains.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. You're like, I'm just something floating around on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Like nothing's that serious.
Is email really important
is,
in
is
comparison?
AI really the answer?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
Well, I think we
topsoil,
have to
really.
have a second episode on plant interactions because this was just way too much fun. And I was just thinking, my brain and was just spinning. Just yeah.
You just got like a billion more questions, and
We
then you
were,
realize we've been
yeah, we
doing
were
this
on the
for an
epic
hour.
scale. I mean, the kind of, this grand scale, and I love it. Yeah, it's good stuff. The genesis of processes and differentiation of branches and trunks, and yeah.
Well, and
There's
like
a
I was
reason
trying
why
to
it's your
say at the
favorite.
start, it's weird. Like I'm a very applied entomologist. I don't do basic research. I just talk about bugs to people, and I read and learn everything I can about what happens with insects and how they impact humans, and I try to help people out. But that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the basic science. Like this is very basic stuff of like, why do bugs eat plants? Why do plants exist?
I do bug
And
plant.
why do bug plant? Why
Why plant
why
bug?
not more bug on plant? All these kinds of caveman like questions, I guess. Where yeah, if we don't drill into that, if we don't understand these mechanisms, we don't understand our place in the system as much. Even like I know that sounds very grandiose, but I think it is important to figure out why bugs and plants, why insects feed on plants, and then what does that mean? What does it mean for us? And by understanding that more, we get better defenses against some of it. Maybe it does come down to like just make the plant taste different, and then the insects are like, oh, this isn't my food anymore.
Ew.
Rather than chasing these highs of more and more insecticide applications or what have you. So, I mean, these basic questions are important, and I hope people recognize their value and hear how it leads to these more applied fronts that we all work in and exist in,
Yeah.
and try to help people with.
Yeah. It's very
Awesome.
practical.
Well, Jonathan, can you tell us these other sweet bug podcasts that you do so that people can
Oh,
go
this
follow you?
I get to plug my pluggables.
Absolutely.
Plug, 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 plug.
I am ostensibly on Blue Sky. I am at Bugman John there. I've never posted, but I am there, and you could follow me if you wanted to. But I'm more online as Kentucky Bugs on Facebook. That's our social media feed for the department. And then also I have a podcast, Arthro-Pod. That's arthro-pod.blogspot.com for a lot of our archive. But we're on all your favorite podcatcher apps. You always have to include the dash between Arthro and Pod, or you won't find us. But that's a show about the weird world of insects. We do lots of different deep dives. We talked recently about specific types of insects in specific video games. We've talked about the pilgrims
Centipedes.
and cicadas. We do all kinds of different episodes. And so if people have any questions about insects, we might cover it on there. And you can always tell us what you're interested in, and then we will do it. I've got a few up my sleeve that I want to do soon. I'm trying to figure out the history of imported fire ants in the United States. And I've got a really grand one about the father of American entomology. His name is Thomas Say. He was a part of a utopian cult in southern Indiana. And I think that would be interesting to examine
Fascinating.
why he was
Immediately,
led to
yes.
New Harmony.
Immediately, yes. Like those are two of my favorite things, like being combined into one episode.
Right.
Absolutely. How do I support
Anything
you
that
on
sounds
this?
like X-Files, I'm here for. Anything. Anything.
Oh, we
And
did do a Mothman episode last year, so that's kind of
Oh,
X-Filesy.
and
mhm,
when was that
mhm.
last year, you say?
Yeah, last July or August. So yeah.
I'm jotting down notes as we go.
You need to
I'm
do
gonna look
a
it up.
you need to do a
Mothman.
spooky episode on spooky bugs
We
or
try to do a Halloween episode. We usually watch a movie. So Mimic is actually on the table for this year's Halloween episode. Last year, I think we did The Fly with Jeff Goldblum.
Perfect.
That was
Love
a
it.
lot of fun. But yeah, we try to touch on the cultural impact of insects as well as the insect history and insect evolution.
well, it's perfect that you came on Hort Culture
That's
podcast
right.
today.
We
So
we both are very clever with our names.
well, I know I follow Arthropod and throw them in my earbuds when I'm outside. So encourage all of you all to do that. After you listen to our weekly episode, you go listen to their weekly episode, and it's a win-win around here, plants and insects. So thanks, Jonathan, for being on today. You can follow us at Hort Culture Podcast on Instagram. You can send us a DM. You can shoot us an email, and that is in our show notes. And we'll put Jonathan's info in our show notes as well, so you can just click and easily do that because we like simple around here. But we thank you all for being here with us today, and we hope that you will join us next time. Have a great one.